Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to the first Drive Time video ever. We are excited about what's going on here. We're excited to put this together for you each week. And to kick things off, we have the one and only Pastor Cory Demmel. Most of you know him well, and he doesn't really need an introduction. But for any of you who are joining us from outside Cape Christian, just want to do a quick introduction. Cory's our lead pastor. He also speaks into businesses and churches all across America. And really his defining thing, and those of us who know him know this is a fact, he is all about adding value everywhere. Wherever he is at, he wants to add value. So actually, that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. I just want to know, why is this such a big thing for you?
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for having me on. It's so great to be with you guys, wherever you're watching from or listening from. I think a couple of reasons. I think it's because I feel like those two words kind of sum up what I feel, at least for me, I was put on the planet to do. I think it kind of captures all of my skills and passions, and it adds a lot of purpose. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I think also, I'm a simple guy. I like the least common denominator. And even when, as somebody who follows Jesus, and maybe you're watching and you're not a Jesus follower, that's super cool. We're so glad you're with us too. But for me, when I read the story, just from a historical standpoint as a man, even move the deity side out, that's all he did, is whether it was with his words, with his actions, and he did it so differently than everybody else. But whether he was encouraging or speaking or teaching or coaching or correcting, he was constantly improving the atmosphere. He was, we talk about being a thermostat versus a thermometer. He was always the thermostat. He was always bringing the best out of people. And so, and for me, I think in my 20s, maybe late 20s, there kind of a light bulb went off for me that my calling wasn't a career or a job. It was way bigger than that I could do what I was built to do through many different careers. In fact, Dave, you're a sheriff's deputy, I'm a pastor. I think I could do what I feel to do in either of these or many others. And it's that I feel, even on my resume, kind of my purpose statement isn't about ministry, although ministry is great. It's really about that my goal is to bring the best out of anybody and add value, even if only one time. And so I'm passionate about it because, again, I think if we all would maybe look at our lives through that lens, we would be able to make the world a better place. But also, one of the bigger ones for me, Dave, and the older I get to realize, the more I realize, I think this is huge, is it actually gives me purpose in everything that I'm doing. If I'm just a pastor, then when I'm not preaching or leading or teaching, then I'm off. You know what I mean? Or if I'm just a sheriff, then when I pull the car in and get home, then I'm off. But if my calling or if my life is about adding value, then when I go to the pool store for my chemicals, I have purpose. When I go to the grocery store, to Publix or Sam's, I have purpose. When I go to a basketball game, I have purpose. When I get gas at 7-Eleven, I have purpose. When I'm at Disney World, I have purpose. When I'm at work, I have purpose. And so for me, I love that when I think about adding value, and I've kind of become almost addicted to looking for it and doing it and inspiring others. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But I think it's for me, it's just, I find, purpose in everything we do. Just the other day, I came to one of those four-way stops. You'll appreciate this because you're law enforcement. I came to one of those four-way stops. And I actually remember, I'm almost 40, but I remember driver's ed, that when two people come to a four-way stop at the same time, it's technically, you should defer to the person on your right. Correct me if I'm wrong. But and so I did, and it was a lady, and I was to her right. And I was thinking to myself, in my brain, I'm doing this I remember driver's ed. Technically, I have the right of way, but it just clicked into me because I've trained my brain to go, but I'm here about adding value. And so I just simply said, go ahead. And she did that oh, okay. I think she was caught off guard that a younger guy let her go through, who wasn't in a hurry. And so again, even though I was just driving, I find purpose in everything I do. And so I think, and again, I think if I could inspire others to that their lives would have more meaning, whether it's my moment as a dad, as a husband, whatever the case may be. And I think even in our culture, while we're always busy and we're chasing success and people make money and they advance in their careers, I think a lot of people lack the feeling of purpose. And I think that's one of the key reasons why it's just a passion of mine.
You talked about training your brain to to think that way.
Yeah.
What's a tangible way that we as guys can start that training process so
Cool.
this for us?
Great question. And again, I'm going to give it to you. It's super simple. It's super practical. I'm a practical guy. There's really just 4 steps, 4 things that you can do. Actually, I'm going to give you a bonus 5th because we're leaders, some of us, but 4 things about how I kind of train my brain. And again, this was something I had to be a lot more intentional about when I was early on. And now it's kind of like memory, muscle memory, those types of things. And so, but I'll start with this. First of all, I think it's important to understand that most of us, I've said this before, most of us have uphill goals and uphill aspirations. We want to be better fathers. We want to be better husbands. We want to be better at our job. We want to be community leaders. But the reality is, again, I think present company included, we have uphill goals, but we have downhill habits. And so we have to address some of those downhill habits. And the only way we can do that is one of my favorite words, which is starting to get intentional. We have to be intentional. And so for me, this helps me be intentional. And this practical step grinds against some of my downhill habits, downhill quirks that work against my uphill goals. And I had mentioned purpose a second ago, but I wanted to say this. First of all, the reason I love intentionality is because I've never read a book. I've never talked to anybody who made anything of themselves who ever talked about like accidental achievement or accidental goal reaching. It's never like, I just kind of did whatever I felt like. And then I woke up and man, one day I was a CEO and my marriage was so healthy and my kids loved me. Like it was crazy, dude. Like no one's ever said that. So we have to be intentional about doing some things. And to me, there's kind of this dichotomy where you got 2 things working against each other. Is you have, I think, especially as guys, we want significance. And so we're all searching for significance. And significance by definition is about other people. If I'm going to have significance, it's about adding value and being about other people. Again, one of my favorite things about Jesus. Well, the opposite kind of significance is selfishness, because selfishness is all about me. So significance is about others. Selfishness is about me, and selfishness and significance are incompatible. And so again, I have to train myself to recognize when am I being selfish, even internally, not the narrative I'm spinning, but really what do I want? And so again, I think this intentionality of adding value not only helps us achieve significance, but it kind of works against the selfishness that's just in our human nature. So I'm going to call it 5 because we're doing a bonus one, but 4 ways I add value. And again, I've literally gone through this process. We have this conversation in our household all the time, even with my daughter. Our daughters are good friends, same age, at breakfast or at dinner. And it's just, how did you add value today? Or how are you going to add value today? And so again, I'm trying to train my daughter to think through this. And we started these conversations when she was probably 4 or 5 years old, with just holding a door, thanking mommy, those types of things. And so 5 ways to add value to people every day. Well, and number one's probably the biggest one. Is it starts with number 1, I value people. I genuinely, I deeply care about people. Again, this comes from my faith, my personal faith in Jesus. John the Baptist in John chapter 3 said, I need less of me and more of Jesus in my life. And so the more I do that, the more I increase my capacity to care about others and trust God for myself. Again, that whole selfishness thing. And so, I look at Jesus's words and I look at Jesus's footsteps. God, when I look at that, I see that he loves me and he values me. He loves you and he values you. He loves others and he values others. In fact, for me, I've gotten to the point where I understand, I may not feel, but I understand that God values and loves people that I don't even like or that aren't like me. And I think that's where, that really can become a challenge to add value to somebody that maybe you disagree with. Imagine in this climate, politically or whatever, if we could actually add value to people we don't like or we disagree with, that would be very God honoring in my opinion. So one of my favorite, I think Andy Stanley coined this. He said, people who weren't like Jesus liked Jesus and Jesus liked them. And that really challenges me with this adding value. And so, for me, I start with this question: am I more interested in correcting people or am I more interested in connecting with people? And again, that's where the whole adding value. So number 1 is I value other people. You cannot add value to people if you don't see the value in them or you don't value them. So number 1, I value people. And then number 2, again, these are going to be simple and practical. Number 2, I think of ways to add value to people. So I actually go through my calendar, I go through my schedule, and whether it's a meeting, an appointment, somewhere I'm going to be, I actually think of who might I run into. Sports people call it visualization. Sports psychologists, I visualize my day. How can I add value in a staff meeting? How can I add value at church? What are some ways I can just be intentional? I see myself, again, whether it's in the lobby on a weekend, well, before the coronavirus, or in a meeting, or I'm going to Publix. I'm going to simple thing. Like earlier today, I went to Publix. I made it a point to go, I'm going to look at the name tag of the person who is scanning my items and taking my money, and I'm going to thank them by name versus be like, hey, have a good day while I'm walking out. I looked her in the eyes. I said, thank you, Sharon, or whatever her name was, protecting the innocent. Thank you. And I do that. I've just learned to do that everywhere I go. Gas stations, restaurants, whatever. Like, people just love hearing their name, and it's a way to add value. So I think of ways. Who am I going to see? How can I add value? So first I value people. Then I think of ways. And now that I've thought of ways, now I go into my day. Number 3 is I look for ways. And this is training your brain. It's looking for ways to add value. And it's interesting, when I started this, I would go into a day and I would go, man, there were like 3 or 4 opportunities for me to add value that day. I was just starting to, lift that weight, if you will. And so like, I'm looking for ways. I didn't think about staff meetings. I wasn't thinking about name tags. I was just like, I held the door, or, I asked my wife how her day was before I said anything about myself, those types of things. Well, as I've gotten better at it, now I can find probably 3 or 4 or 5 opportunities every hour versus 3 or 4 a day, because as I've done it more, I've seen more opportunities. The more I do it, the more I see it, the more I see it, the more I do it. So it kind of cycles. So I value people. I think of ways, then I look for ways. And then here's the craziest part: application. I actually do it. I value people. I add value. I look at the name tag. I hold the door. I let somebody else go first. I pull into the one practice I do that some of you guys, this would be a great thing for you to do. As I'm pulling into the house, I will sit in my driveway or my car for 1 or 2 minutes, and I will just like rethink all my day and get it out. And then I will picture what kind of a day my wife and daughter maybe had when I came in, and picture listening and being empathetic. And I'm not going to make them pay for the bad day I had at work, or the stress I'm feeling. And so I value, I go from thinking to looking to actually doing. And so again, really simple things, but if we would train our eyes and our brains to do this, we would find purpose in so many more moments, and we would be the leaders we want to be, and we would enhance the environment that we're around. I mean, I think that every guide, something in what I just said, like, is like, yeah, I want that. I want to be better, and I want to be a leader, and I want to have purpose. Well, you can do that on vacation. You can do it traveling. I do it on airplanes. And again, I'm not to talk to the person for 3 hours, but I still look for a way to defer, prefer, add value, those types of things. So I value people. I think of ways to do it. I look for ways to do it, and then I do it. And I said there was a bonus 5th one. As a leader, I go to that. Now I want to encourage and inspire others to add value as well, which is what I'm doing here today. And so for me, this is, once it becomes a thing, now it's like, how can I inspire and encourage other people to do that as well? And to kind of land the plane, there's a scripture that for me is always been kind of one of my life scriptures. My dad poured this into me, but it resonates with this. It's Colossians 3:23. Some of you guys maybe already know it, but I love how the Amplified version says, it says, whatever you do, and this is where that purpose comes from. Whatever you do, whatever your task may be, it says, work from the soul. That is, put your very best effort as something done for the Lord and not to men. So for me, adding value is a form of worship. It's not just how can I make myself look good or by the people around me, but it's God, even though I don't want to teach math right now, even though, because we're at home with kids, or God, I don't really want to go to the grocery store, or I'm not looking forward to whatever. Like, I'm doing this for you. And all of a sudden it's worship. It's meaningful in my connection to God, and it's meaningful in my connection to other people. And when you live to add value, it gives every moment and every interaction purpose. I say it this way. I believe that every interaction matters, and I like to leave things better than I found them, whether it's a sidewalk on a park, or it's the church property, or my home, or even when I go on a walk, if I see trash, I pick it up. Why? I just want to get in the habit of adding value. And I believe if we can become value adders as a lifestyle, it'll improve our joy, it'll improve our purpose, and we will see ourselves grow and become more the man that God created us to be. So that's why I'm all about it. And there's just 4 or 5 simple things you can do. I value people. I think of ways to do it. I look for ways to do it. Then I do it, and then I inspire others to do it. So, man, what a great way to start a week if we started thinking about this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, this is great. It's a great way to shift our perspective, like you said, taking it off of us and really redirecting it, not only our thoughts but our efforts. So that's excellent, and I can't think of a better way to start the Drive Time series. So, Pastor Cory, thanks for being here this morning. Thanks for making this a priority and taking the time to do this for us. And guys, make sure you're back with us every week. Every Monday, we're going to be posting a new video and just another way for you to continue to move towards that goal of being a better man, being a better husband, being a better follower of Christ. So thank you again for your time. And guys, just keep growing, keep moving forward.
Let's do it. Thanks, Dave.